is Laura Perry. I am a mother, a varsity coach, a former NCAA collegiate athlete, and a candidate running for state representative. We are here today to inform the press that a parent in Monroe County has filed a formal complaint outlining grave Title IX violations and direct threats to our female athletes. The complaint has been submitted to the U.S. Department of Education, the Michigan Department of Education, the MHSAA, and Monroe Public Schools. Ann Arbor Skyline and Monroe High School, the very place where I was a multi-sport varsity athlete that afforded me the opportunity to obtain an athletic scholarship, violated Title IX. First, by allowing a match to proceed, and second, by allowing the girls to share a locker room and a restroom, even after the Monroe High School was allegedly informed the day before that a male player would be participating. Let me be clear. Title IX was established to separate athletics by biological sex, to ensure equal opportunity, competitive fairness, and safety of female athletes. As a reminder, a high school in North Carolina, there was a player, a volleyball player, that suffered a traumatic brain injury after being spiked in the head with a ball while playing with a biological male that was allowed to compete on their women's team. Today, we are calling on the U.S. Department of Education and the Trump administration to act swiftly.
All right. Hey, guys, how you doing? That was really the essence of what we're going to be talking about tonight. We've got, and by the way, the link in the description is there for the full news conference that Laura Perry and several state lawmakers, you probably noticed them in the backdrop, had this past Monday. That was candidate Laura Perry in the 31st House seat, and then behind her, she's coming on actually in later on in this program, we have State Representative Jamie Thompson, who was there. You might have also seen State Senator Joe Bellino. U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers was there, as was State Representative William Bruck. Who am I forgetting? Let's think. Come on. Behind Laura Perry, there was Brian Ignatowski, who's also a candidate for State House. And Riley Linting, another state representative, was there as well. And I'm sure there's another person I've forgotten. But with us right now, though, we have Attorney Matt Wilk, who is going to go through with us. We have the copy of the actual complaint that's been submitted. And by the way, the person that submitted, the father of the student there, Sean Lechner, that was him standing behind Laura Perry on the podium there in the news conference. He actually has a fantastic interview he did earlier this week on Fox Business, which you can also find the link to that in the description. He did a fantastic job there. Although I would say, and Matt, tell me in your legal opinion, I would say this case is really not about the parties. It's about what happened here. It's about the violation of Title IX by these schools, and the fact that this father, what makes it him significant is that he had the bravery to step up and put his name on this document, knowing that he, and I'm sure his family, his daughters are going to be, or things. I don't know if he has one or two daughters or more, but I'm sure that he is going to be getting some heat for this. So congratulations to him for having the courage to stand up and do this. But anyway.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because there's two parts to it, right? The first part is that the school, Ann Arbor in particular, has a policy that allows boys to play girls' sports. Okay, let's be very clear: a boy with gender dysphoria is a boy. A girl with gender dysphoria is a girl.
Amen.
Boy with gender dysphoria is playing in a girl's sport. I don't know this for a fact personally, but it's been reported enough times that I can assert it as likely, highly likely. Okay. So problem number one is the policy. Ann Arbor is one of 13 districts in the state of Michigan that I found in my research that has a written policy that says, I call it the Shania Twain policy. If a young man wakes up and says, man, I feel like a woman, and they walk in, the school district will call them a woman. Okay. And provide them with opportunities that a woman would otherwise have to themselves. The second part is the undertaking of it. So it's a policy-based complaint partially, and it's a fact-based complaint, which is to say girls in Monroe were forced to play against a boy. Girls in Monroe were forced to change in a locker room with a boy. And the part of their complaint is, we'll talk about a little bit about what Monroe
Yes.
did or did not do, but so it's both policy and fact.
Yes. So maybe we should go through it. Although I think in that short clip we saw, Laura Perry laid it out, the most important single thing, which is that a female athlete has been permanently injured by a male playing on the opposing team.
That's just one sport.
Because there's reasons why sports were biologically separated by sex in the first place.
Well, let's start there. Okay, let's go back in the Wayback Machine to 1972. In 1972, Congress passed Title IX amongst a bunch of other provisions, and sort of like a baby Civil Rights Act. But this one, Title IX in particular, preserves the right of women to educational opportunities, and amongst those educational opportunities are the right to play high school and collegiate sports. Okay. Remember, before all this happened, before we got all crazy woke, Title IX was focused on female athletes. Okay. I remember, I think there's a clothing brand or store called Title IX, right? Yeah. Where they sell women's athletic wear. So prior to
this was considered a major civil rights victory for women before the left decided that actually there's this thing called transgender people that are more important than women.
Correct. And so think about it beforehand. Beforehand, a school district did not have to have even numbers of men's and women's sports. Okay. They could have a men's basketball team, a men's football team, a men's baseball team. Sorry, girls, we don't have the money to pay for your sports. And Congress said that seems wrong to us. And they passed it, and it has been the law of the land for 50 years. For 46 or 44 of those 50 years, it was well understood that it had this following effect. Okay, let's say a school district says, we want to have a basketball team, a singular basketball team, and may the best 12 people win, make the team. Can they do that? No, they can't do that. Why can't they do that? They can't do that because Title IX says you can't do that. It is meant to preserve the rights of young women.
Yeah, because in a may the best 12 win to get on the team, women are not going to be tall enough to get onto the team.
Or fast enough, or jump high enough, and all those different things. And there's an understanding of biology. So that all went all along until the Bostock case in 2016. Which was, Obama was still president. And the Bostock case was not about education. It was about employment. It was effectively about, could you fire somebody because they dressed in a way opposite of their sex? Okay. So the state of Michigan in 2016 extrapolates from that and says, well, what that means is school districts have to comply with Bostock in a way that Bostock never touched. Meaning a boy with gender dysphoria should be treated like a girl and vice versa. Okay, so that's the backdrop of all this. So this activity is very clearly in violation of Title IX's understanding. For 40 plus years, nobody challenged what it meant to have a girls' sport.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then fast forward to where we are today.
Well, and we should say, before today, when Joe Biden was the president, the policy of the White House was, never mind whatever the law says, we're going to allow boys to compete in girls' sports by just calling themselves women.
Right.
And the Trump administration has now reversed that policy.
Yeah. So, and actually that took a little while. So Biden was elected in 2020, starting in 2021. It wasn't until 2023 that they proposed that to a rereading of Title IX to say Title IX now just doesn't defend women; it defends women and boys with gender dysphoria. Okay, yeah. So that administrative procedure was cleared in late 2024, and it lasted about a half breath before I think 11 courts found that it violated the spirit and the writing of Title IX. So if you recall, Adam, one of the biggest cases was called Loper Bright. It was a case that threw out what's called Chevron deference. That's when a government agency writes its own rules on itself. And the court says, previously the court would just defer to them and say, seems okay to me. Under Loper Bright, the court said, no. We get to take a look at whether what you've done is proper. And this lasted about a hot minute after Loper Bright, because it was clearly violating the original intent of Title.
Yeah, it was a huge case that tons of federal regulations then became null and void because they'd never been passed by Congress when really that was their thing to do. Anyway, should we look at this complaint now?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it lays it out. In fact, it's not a long document. It's only 5 pages. So here we go. I'm submitting this formal complaint regarding serious administrative failures. I'm kind of skipping over this part quickly because it's not all that important, but here's the basis. And stop me if you think I'm skipping over stuff that is important, but here's where it says what Title IX says, which we kind of just went over. And then here it is. Ann Arbor Skyline High School had this biological male athlete on the team. They point out he was named very recently the player of the match, highlighting the significant impact on the team's performance. And this athlete was allowed to compete without submitting the required waiver to the MHSAA as required when a biological male participates in female athletics. Do you want to touch on this with this waiver?
Let's stop there for a second, because
it's a permission slip to let the boy play on the girls' team. Or something
no,
like
it gets a little deeper than that, sir. So recall when so this was going on in multiple states, and I think the first one that Trump went after was in the state of Maine. And they had a governor's conference, and Trump was at it, and he says, "Hey, is the governor of Maine here?"
Right.
And she raises her hand, and she's going to be all combative, and he says, "You got boys playing in girls' sports. You got to knock that stuff off." And she says, "Well, state law requires it." And he says, "Yeah, but federal law overrides state law." And she says, "We'll see you in court." And he says,
how'd that go for her?
Okay. And literally within, I think, about 30 days, there was an OCR, Office of Civil Rights. The Department of Education has a division called the Office of Civil Rights.
Yes.
And that prosecutes violations of Title IX, among other things, 7, 9, 1, a few others, right? So they immediately filed a Title IX complaint. The OCR did an investigation. I think it lasted like 10 days. It was not a tough investigation. What did the governor say they were doing? Yes, we're letting boys and girls sports. I guess they are, right?
Not hard to prove.
Not hard to prove. And when you do that, you get to cut off federal funding. So that happened in Maine. And then the story sort of started to spread. And, we have, of course, the great Governor Whitmer, and she's going to run for office, and she's going to be the new president or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And eventually the question gets to her. And the first reaction of every Democrat on every issue, and I think you've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. Step 1, it's not happening. Step 2, it's only happening, but just a little. Step 3, it's really important.
And it's great.
It's awesome. You really, really ought to be doing it. Yeah. So we were between step 1 and step 2, and they said, well, there aren't any athletes there. This doesn't affect any people in Michigan, because we at the MHSAA require a waiver to be filed.
Yeah. By the way, in case we never said, we're talking the Michigan High School Athletics Association.
Yes. So if you're in a high school sport and you want to have a boy with gender dysphoria playing a sport that's reserved for girls, you have to get their permission to do so. And they said, MHSAA proudly announced that they had only granted 2 waivers in the state of Michigan. Yeah. And
So these are waivers for the MHSAA to give the school permission to violate federal law.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, it may be something where I can't conceive of one. It's like the chess team or something, right? Where there isn't a biological advantage. Or I think what it's designed for is genetic anomalies, right?
Sure.
You have a child that's born XXY or whatever, and they have never really, it's always been a genetic anomaly. That's what it's supposed to apply to. Is that what went on? No, of course not. So the MHSAA ran out and said, we only have 2 waivers in the whole state. Now, my district, I know there was a situation in a particular sport that I will not name, that this existed.
And by the way, you are the president of the Northville Republican Club.
Yes, correct. And I was on the
Northville, Michigan.
Yeah. Yes, correct. And I said, wow, it's going to be really odd that we have half of them in Northville. Everyone knew this wasn't true. Everybody knew this wasn't true. And here it comes to roost. So the MHSAA is supposed to enforce its own rules. One of those rules is eligibility. Are you eligible to play? Most of the time, eligibility has to do with where do you live? You can't play school. You can't go to Northville High and play football in Ann Arbor. You can't do that. That's illegal. Most of the time, that's what they do. This time, they apparently, who knows whether they granted a waiver or not. They claimed they never did, which means what?
They never got their permission from the state.
Correct.
Mhm.
And they
also
now,
never put this on record that this was even happening.
Right. But what they're supposed to do is ensure eligibility. So if they knew that this situation was going on and they knew that a waiver had not been sought, they should have canceled games and rendered the team ineligible. At the least, they should have let the parents know, hey, we've heard about this situation and we don't see a waiver on our file. So were they facilitating the breach of this? Now, you tell me what was going on in the Ann Arbor athletic department when that was happening.
I can't imagine the Ann Arbor athletic department.
Yeah.
Well,
so what they did, for everyone's benefit,
Ann Arbor.
What probably happened is Ann Arbor bought the ideology.
Yeah.
This person doesn't need a waiver because they're not a boy anymore. They're a girl now. So they don't need a waiver. And if you've ever seen the video, anyone can Google San Jose volleyball player. And this happened in college. And this was a very similar situation. And multiple colleges refused to compete against this boy because this boy was an outside hitter. And guess what? Boys can hit harder than girls can. I don't care whether you have gender dysphoria or not. They can jump higher. By the way, unless I'm mistaken, men's volleyball is played on a different height net. So this guy's on not only can he jump higher, not only is he taller, not only is he stronger, the net is lower. And I don't want my daughter getting a ball in the face spiked by a boy trying to hit it as hard as he possibly can.
Yeah. That's crazy. All right, let's get back to the complaint here.
Okay.
So where do we leave off? Yes. So they Ann Arbor Skyline played Monroe and they won. Imagine that. Although they did finally get defeated in the quarterfinals, I heard.
Right.
So there was actually a girls team of girls that were so good they defeated the team that had a boy on it. So congratulations to that team. Both schools failed to ensure fair competition. And we've been through all this. And then, of course, this other minor detail here. My daughter was forced to share a locker room where females undressed with a male athlete. The presence of a male in the girls' locker room was not disclosed prior to the match, constituting a violation of policy and bodily integrity protections under Title IX. A parent also told Tom Heck, president of the Monroe High School board, that her daughter was in the stall next to the male athlete while using the restroom. Well, that's lovely.
I mean, then that's an important point for everybody, is that this is not limited to athletic contests. This is a complaint about an athletic contest and the use of private locker room facilities.
Yeah.
It's what, there have been situations where people have been uncomfortable in the past of changing in front of a group of people. They change in the gym teacher's office or the private bathroom or something like that. But Ann Arbor has taken the position very clearly. They're not going to do that. That's the problem of the parents whose daughters are subject to that. Well, I guess we'll see what the feds have to say about that.
Yeah. And this happened at Monroe High School. In fact, they were at the news conference, which again, the link is in the description. Some of the reporters were asking, like, is it normal for the opposing teams to share the same locker room? And I think they said, no, not really, but that's what happened in this game for whatever bizarre reason. And then here again, in this case, I guess it was different. At Skyline, Monroe girls were again forced to compete against the same male athletes, this time not to share locker rooms. And so that's all. Let's see here. Okay, so now we get to after the fact. That's the first thing, was this incident happened. So now after the incident, here's where there's been some now, I guess, requests for information. So Chet Hessen, who was he again? He was the athletic director of Monroe High School. So they asked the Monroe High School athletic director, and he says he knowingly required my daughter and her teammates to share a locker room. So he knew this was going to happen. He had prior knowledge the day before the match, which does not seem like adequate notice, but still he had some notice that a male athlete would be present on the opponent. And there's the name of the Ann Arbor High School's athletic director is named Delcy Sissoko. Okay. This is not standard practice. Teams typically do not share locker rooms, but he made the Monroe girls do so anyway. I think they're talking about Chet Hessen because they said up here it happened in Monroe. Anyway, false claim with no prior knowledge. Following the first game, Hessen, Monroe, claimed in writing he did not have prior knowledge of the athlete's sex or gender identity. This was false, as confirmed by a staff member of the athletic community at Monroe High School. These are fact questions I guess the Department of Education might have to investigate, but this doesn't seem like it's all that relevant, honestly. I mean,
yeah, the issue they're trying to raise is, again, a factual one. Did the AD know and take no action? It sounds, I mean, I'll take what they say as true. Like, I don't know this. I have no reason to believe or disbelieve it. But if what they say is true, it sounds like he did know about it. And the question is the athletic director of a competing school duty bound to let the parents know, hey, this team has an ineligible player, and the genesis of that ineligibility is this person's not a girl.
Yeah. And I've got some conflicting statements. There was now an October 23rd meeting. I guess this is probably the first confrontation when this happened, or the first public confrontation. So at a meeting with parents and players, the Monroe athletic director again said he had no prior knowledge. He claimed he was prohibited from this might be important. He claimed he was prohibited from informing parents or athletes under the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. That's, by the way, this is my pet peeve. I always hear people call it just Elliott Larson for short, but people don't know what that means if they don't know what that is. It's the Michigan Civil Rights Law. And FERPA, which is, I guess, the Federal something Protection Act, Federal Equal Rights Protection Act.
No, it's not. It's
No?
Education Privacy.
Thank you.
Education Records and Privacy Act.
I was guessing and I guessed wrong. Federal.
Yeah, it's like preserving private school information.
Gotcha. When asked what measures could prevent a repeat incident, he offered no solutions because obviously he's been put in this position by the MHSAA, which wanted this situation to be where it is. When a parent raised the risk of injury, he laughed and suggested seeking legal counsel, comparing the situation to a co-ed game despite it being an all-female match. Incredible. These actions showed deliberate disregard for Title IX obligations to provide a safe and equitable environment for female athletes. And now we have more information, evidence confirming prior knowledge on November 8th. Again, this is like barely a month ago. A member of the athletic community at Monroe High informed me that the head coach had been notified by the Monroe athletic director the day before September 9th match that Skyline had a transgender athlete on the roster, and a formal verbal statement was put in with Tom Heck, the president of the Monroe Public School Board. So by knowingly, this is now the complaint, by knowingly forcing locker room sharing and failing to implement safeguards, Hessen violated Title IX privacy, safety, and okay, we get the idea. So there we go. Overall concerns, and then there's basically this is what happened. And so what is the requested reaction from the Department of Education? I request the district ban biological males from competing in female sports, ban biological males from entering female locker rooms, conduct a full investigation into actions and communications of a number of public schools for these Title IX violations. Which I guess that puts the ball in the Trump administration's court. What do you think? What do we expect here? What is the next steps from the Department of Education? Because obviously that's where this has gone.
Right. So what happens next is that the Department of Education will seek more formal paperwork on the matter. Okay. So there's a form that they send. You fill this out. Can you be more specific on this, that, or the next thing? Do you want the name of the child to be used? Is it okay if I call you? That kind of thing. Since it's been press released, probably everything's going to be done. Then it goes to the Department of Justice or Department of Education and the Department of Justice for review. That's pretty much a black box. Does somebody pick it up immediately and do something about it? Do they take a long time and consider it? That's been a little elongated because of the government shutdown. So when the government shut down, these people stopped working and stuff piled up. So how long is it going to take them to pick it up? I don't know. When they do, that's when it gets interesting.
Yeah. Well, let's jump to whenever that happens. What will be the next step, do you imagine?
All right. So what happens? Then they send, then it's like what happened in Maine. You've seen in Maine, Colorado. It's happened a lot. The reason why this is so delayed is because there's so many of them. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very clear violation. And what they'll do is they'll either do a fact-based investigation or look at look at the complaint and say, yeah, we know enough. And they'll send effectively like a probable cause letter and say, hey, district, we have reason to believe that you've done this, and we're going to conduct an investigation. And it's wide ranging. They can do depositions. They can ask for documents. They can ask for emails, everything under the sun. It's very broad. No, FERPA does not protect the information. No, Elliott Larson does not protect the information. And they will find out, and it will be a matter of public record, whether the district knew and how they reacted. And did Ann Arbor seek a waiver? Did they have an internal email go around saying we don't need to seek a waiver? Okay. So all that will be part of an investigation. Then once they determine that there is a breach, they send a letter to the districts and say, you've breached Title IX. You have basically 10 days to take corrective action. And this is the corrective action we're looking for. And that can be negotiated over and things like that. But this one's pretty clear. Now, this where you're going to have a little bit of a deviation. Okay. Because Monroe Public Schools, maybe more likely than not, would say, okay, we'll institute a policy as requested. No boys and girls sports, no boys and girls locker rooms, no boys and girls bathrooms.
Yeah. Ann Arbor.
Right. Ann Arbor's going to get, and so what the question is, what happens if they say yes, then the policy is instituted. Okay. And then you can, if there's damages involved, you can talk about damages and how that's resolved. If they object, then the federal government says you're in violation of Title IX. Remember issues of sovereignty and federalism. Mm-hmm. So what the feds can do is cut off your money. No more federal money for you.
Yeah.
And until you fix it.
Yeah. Which would change the behavior probably pretty quickly.
Yeah. I don't know how much Fed money that Ann Arbor gets. I suspect it's more than they let on. But
it's always enough to matter, though.
It's enough to matter. Yeah. Right. And they cut it off. And you're expecting a check for X amount of dollars, and they cut it off. And then everyone runs into court and they say, However, the times they've gone into court, the court has said money's not subject to an injunction. They're cutting the money off. You can sue them, and you can, as a result, try to win damages. But we're not going to force them to give you the money while this is going on. And most of the time, relatively quickly, you come to some resolution. Would Ann Arbor ever do this? Man, I don't know, but I'd love to find out.
Yeah, really.
Look, because there's a couple things that are very important. Okay, this is very important. This is a volleyball team. A volleyball team has, say, 12 to 15 girls on it. When that boy is playing on the girls' team, that means a girl has been cut from the team. An educational opportunity has been deprived. She's been deprived of it because of a boy being on the team. There are only 6 girls on the court at a time. When that boy is on the court, a girl is sitting on the bench. So again, you're depriving a girl of an opportunity. And the problem is that in Ann Arbor, Saline, Dexter, a lot of these places, it's very insular. And those parents, they don't want to be ostracized. So they're not going to complain. Yeah, my girl was cut. She was the 13th or 15th or 16th girl, and she got cut because there's a boy on the team. But God forbid, I don't want to say anything because I don't want it affecting, next year or the year after.
Yeah.
That's important.
I live in Washtenaw County. I can tell you, people in this county, people in Ann Arbor are terrified. I had people tell me they're afraid to put a yard sign opposing a local tax increase in their yards. That's how terrified they are of the Ann Arbor Democrat mob. They are sick and dangerous people, and they do threaten people. Yeah. And that in itself is an issue.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why it's so important that this is a federal complaint, because it's a federal complaint. It's not, Adam D'Angeli and Matt Wilk versus Ann Arbor Public Schools, and they got all the money, and this is the Ann Arbor Public Schools being sued by the federal government, which has more money than you, more time, better lawyers. And oh, by the way, this isn't their first time prosecuting this. This is like their 20th.
Yeah.
And if Ann Arbor thinks they're going to walk into court and say, "Well, our interpretation of Title IX, blah blah blah," or Adam, you talk about this all the time, between the federal government and the state government, whose law takes priority? It's the feds, and it has been for a long time.
Now, let me ask you this: what happens if the Democrats reclaim the White House in 3 years? What happens if this goes on then? Is there just nothing that people can do? Or does that,
well, if
can you go straight to the courts?
Yeah, you go straight to court. So once the federal government says we're not taking your case, you still have the right to sue under the law. The Title IX has a private right of action and a public right of action. So the public right of action is through the OCR complaint process. If you exhausted your administrative remedies, then you could go to court and you could sue on your own. We do have one other thing going for us. And it's not the White House, it's nearby, it's the Supreme Court.
Yes.
So right now, in the court's January sitting, every month has its own name, we're going to have a very important case. The head plaintiff is BPJ, it's the initials of a child.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a case that was started where a transgender boy with gender dysphoria, claimed that West Virginia has a law, much like Ohio does now, that says simply boys can't play girls sports. Sorry. If you're a boy with gender dysphoria, you can play boys sports. We're giving you an opportunity to play sport commensurate with your biological skill and ability. And this person sued, saying the case in West Virginia has to do with Title IX. And there was a case in Idaho that had to do with 14th Amendment, equal protection. And the equal protection case is so bad and such a loser that the left has tried to what they call moot it by dismissing it and saying, no, this case really isn't before you because we've withdrawn our case. And the court, when faced with the mootness motion, said, you know what? Why don't you make that claim during your oral argument? Because they may want to issue a ruling that says, no, the right to play a sport for a boy with gender dysphoria does not extend to women under Title IX, and it does not extend to women under women's sports under Title IX. It does not extend to women's sports under equal protection either.
Yeah.
So got that.
All right. We've got a special guest joining us. Let me bring her in. This is State Representative Jamie Thompson, who was with us at on that very frigid Monday morning in Monroe at the news conference. And Representative, first off, thank you guys for all the attention you're putting on this issue in Lansing. We were just talking about how the Department of Education has probably a backlog of these complaints. And the hope, I think, is that with all of you guys in Lansing shining a light on this issue, it might help, kind of get to the front of the line here because, it's going to take a while to clear this up. So first, Representative, thank you for joining us. How are you doing? Jamie, you there? Can you hear us?
She's trying.
Uh-oh. Is your mic not on, Jamie?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine. Can you hear us?
I lost my sound. I can't hear you.
Oh, no. Uh-oh. That's no good. I tell you what. We can just keep talking for a minute while you play with that because I don't know what to do. I can't troubleshoot with you right now. You're not muted. Yeah, hold on. Well, shoot. Let me just check. I just realized you couldn't hear what I just said. Let's see here. Maybe she has headphones because that might be the issue. I don't know. Check phone volume. All right, I just sent her some suggestions. I don't know.
All right, check your phone.
Got it. I had
you got it.
Yep, I had my Bluetooth on.
Oh, that'll do it too. I hate when that happens.
I know. I'm like, when I logged on, I'm listening to you guys. I can hear what's going on, and then when you put me on, I'm like, all of a sudden, everything went quiet. And I couldn't hear anything.
No. Yeah. Well, good to have you on. So anyway, how are you? How are you doing? How goes the battle in Lansing? First of all, that bad, huh?
Yeah.
So one of the things that was brought up is that there is actually a bill that has been passed by you guys in the House. That is 4469, and I think there was a tie bar on this. Yeah, 4469 is this one by Representative Linting.
Yes.
And you're a co-sponsor on that. And then the other one is 4066, which both of these are essentially to keep boys off the girls' sports teams, which, as we can see here, have first off passed the House. And it looks to me like it was all Republicans voting in the affirmative. I think 58 yeas. That sounds about right.
Yep.
And then it got sent to the Government Operations Committee in the state Senate, which an inside thing that we who've worked in Lansing knows. The Government Operations Committee is where you send bills to not get a hearing and not get a vote and not ever go anywhere. So the Democrats are clearly in this not clear to us, but in a way the public wouldn't know. They're trying to quietly saying we're gonna kill this. We're not gonna support this. So, I mean, that seems like a radical position for the Democrats to take. This is not something that most parents support, is it?
No, it's not. It is not something that most parents support. I've even spoke with Democrats that don't support it. I spoke with Democrats in Lansing in the House of Representatives that don't support it, but they're too afraid to vote.
Yeah.
They're too afraid to vote. They'll vote party line.
It's amazing. Well, I mean, they'll pay the price of the ballot box, I hope, for voting party line instead of voting for what their parents support.
I hope so too. And actually, one of the states that I'm hearing I'm a little concerned about is, I want to say, you'd have to check it out, but I think it's the 2nd district. It's the Liberati seat.
Okay.
And Liberati.
Liberati's Deli, right? Detroit?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So
no, sorry, it's his son, right? Tulio, or is it his cousin or something?
Tulio's his brother.
His brother. Okay. It was
So
Frank
Tulio's
Liberati
his
in the house
brother.
before him. Now it's Tulio. Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
So now he is running for, Tulio Liberati, the one who currently holds the House seat, he's running for Senate. And his brother Frank, because of the change in the term limits, he
wants his
coming
old
back.
seat back.
Okay. But the other Democrat person in the primary is a transgender.
Oh man.
And they're gaining a lot of traction. And I even spoke with people in Lansing that are Democrats that are very concerned that person will win the primary, because the Democrats seem to be leaning into that person.
The transgender one?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Detroit, but I would think Detroit is a little more down to earth than most Democrats.
It's not even Detroit. It's actually like Lincoln Park. So Detroit isn't even in it. I know for sure it's Lincoln Park, Melvindale, Southgate. It might have like maybe some E-course. So the city of Detroit isn't even in the seat.
Yeah.
It's definitely turned into a large Hispanic community. But I had said before, everyone's like, well, that's a Dem seat. We're never going to win it. So we're never going to put a good candidate in it. But do you really want the alternative? Do you want Michigan to have their first trans representative that makes TikTok videos as a woman, that's a man, and dresses as a woman, and talks about how his kids are so proud of him because, he knows that they know that daddy needed to live the life daddy was supposed to live, and now they just have two mommies.
Well, sometimes having the most outrageous extreme Democrats front and center is a good thing for our side. Like, I think a lot of people were happy when Jasmine Crockett announced she was running for U.S. Senate in Texas the other day. But on the other hand, though, wait, are we talking a biological man pretending to be a woman, or the other way around?
A biological man that pretends to be a woman.
You have to worry about your own bathrooms in the House. Well, you don't, as long as you have the majority. But God forbid the Democrats get majority back. You'll have to share a bathroom with a man in the House office building. Even it's amazing. So anyway,
well, I don't know how much you guys got through. I know I heard you talking about the complaint, but one thing that I took away from the whole situation was it seems so simple and such common sense for that dad to file that complaint. And that's a lot of the things that we don't do as citizens of Michigan, or residents of Michigan. We don't ever take the steps that it takes to get things done. And if one dad filed a complaint, and out of all the schools in the state of Michigan that played Skyline, if 100 parents filed a complaint, they're not taking anything serious, and they're never going to. And everyone's like, well, how do they keep doing this? Trump gave an executive order. Who's stopping them? No one's stopping them. They're still running with the same stuff. All the businesses are still doing the same DEI, CRT, letting boys in the bathrooms. They're still doing the same thing they were doing because nobody is stopping them.
Yeah, that I think is the test the Trump administration is going to have to prove in the next year, is that they're going to start clearing out this backlog of complaints. One of the things that, I mean, obviously, all the feds can do is cut off money sooner or later. But apart from that, the other option is, frankly, to take back our state government, which I hope we can do next year. So we'll see how that goes.
But I still feel like if they're like, we're not hearing any complaints from parents. So if nobody's complaining, then everyone seems to be fine with it. Well, why would we do anything to do anything different? Because even the dad in Monroe said lots of parents didn't want that to happen. Lots of parents were upset, but none of them were brave enough to stand up and file a complaint with him.
Yeah, that I think is the heart of the issue, is that too many people are too afraid of this, frankly, terroristic political movement we have called the left in America, that thinks nothing of assassinating people that express right-wing opinions on campus, or or assert their rights under the law. In this case, just to protect the privacy of their girls in the locker rooms. It's incredible.
Go look at the Facebook comments after the press release, and you had, go get them, nice job, and then you had just this tirade of these lunatics. And I'm sorry, not a one of them has a girl that plays sports, because any one of them that has Jamie, you said it before, you and I were just on a panel, and it's like, the hard part is they don't want to speak up because they put themselves at risk a little bit, and they're double worried that they put their kids at risk, because when this stuff goes on, the parent that complains, the teaching's like, that one, that's the one whose parent is complaining about gender queer in our classroom. Well, you know what? You're damn right I am. And it takes enough. It takes a critical mass to get people to say, hey, look, I don't care. I'm done. I'm done keeping this to myself. This is enough.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I remember once a former state senator told me his daughter, who was in college, was asked to write some kind of essay relating to race issues, and she was asking him for help, and he literally wrote her an essay. It was like, and I realized how awful it is that I'm white, and how much guilt I should have about being white, because he knows what the professor was going to, because there's ways that teachers can punish students that they can't be sanctioned for, because a lot of grading is a matter of opinion, and academic freedom is another problem at the high school and the college level. And by the way, and this is a question for you, Matt, because the father was there behind the speakers. His daughter, the 16-year-old, was also there, and she did not speak at the podium, but the first reporter to ask a question called her up and asked her for her name for the record and asked her some questions. And, she was brave and put herself on the record. But it seemed to me very inappropriate for them to put this child on the podium in front of the news cameras.
Well, let me, because
it was inappropriate.
Matt, you weren't there, right?
No, I was not there.
I didn't think so. So I was standing next to Laura, and that girl Briley was behind us. And the reporter actually didn't ask her initially. I think she asked her dad a question. And the question was something like, it was either, how did that make you feel, or how did it make your daughter feel? And then Briley kind of mumbled under her breath, like, I'll tell you how it made me feel. It made me feel terrible. And then we looked over at her. We said, do you want to go tell them that? And that's when she was like, yeah. So,
I have no doubt she was happy to do it. I have no question about that. Just I didn't like that the news had put her in that position in the first place.
Yeah, the news did, specifically the reporter, who was based out of the state, took great pains to never show a picture of the the boyfriend dysphoria athlete, and not mention their name, not anything. And when this guy, in great Ann Arbor fashion, showed up at a Skyline match, he literally had parents and principals following him around and screaming in his ear. Yeah. They're lunatics.
Reporter for Outkick, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And what they can't have is they are effectively the crowd right by the end of the Emperor's New Clothes, right? You finally have a parent saying, that's not a girl, that's a boy. That has a boy with broad shoulders, and he jumps like a boy, and he hits like a boy. Why is my daughter playing a boy? And they can't have you say that. Because if you say that, you've just said the Emperor's not wearing any clothes, and everyone looking at it right, left, middle, looks and says, that's a problem. That's a problem.
Yeah, the left understands how to manipulate language to influence people. That's why if they ever say a transgender man, you have to wait, hold on. Are you talking about a biological man or a biological woman? Which is it? Because frankly, I'm confused half the time.
It's a boy with gender dysphoria or a girl with gender dysphoria. That's it. Because when you phrase it that way, does a boy with gender dysphoria get to go in the girls' locker room? And my example I'd used in Title Line discussions is this. You have a school, and it's got 100 boys and 100 girls. Okay, and the boys get to use the boys' bathroom, and the girls get to use the girls' bathroom. And a boy with gender dysphoria walks in. Now, all of a sudden, the girls don't get to use their own bathroom? Does that make sense? No, it doesn't. And that's or
plan their own sports team.
And that's not to say that this person should be ostracized or mistreated, but look at it the way it is, right? You have a boy with gender dysphoria. The solution to that problem is to deal with that. And that's been dealt with for dozens and dozens and hundreds of years before this. But the solution to the problem is not everybody else gets to pretend that you don't have gender dysphoria, that you actually are the gender that you think you are. That's not a solution. It practically, scientifically, and it's awful for the other parents and kids.
Well, did you get two things that I just thought of? One is it's the adults in the room. So you do feel bad for the child, because in reality, this is a child that most likely just wants to play sports. Mm-hmm. They have parents encouraging them and adults encouraging them to dress as a girl and play on a girl's team. And it's not the child's fault. It's the adults in the room that are making these decisions, and they need to be the ones that need to be called out. You know, not that the minor child or the minor high school student. But did either one of you watch the oversight hearing with the detransitioners?
Oh yeah,
that was
I haven't
deep.
seen that one.
That's hard. That's really hard to watch.
Adam, you need to watch that. That was deep. You almost can understand why there has been this plethora of kids coming out saying that they're trans. It's because there was testimony from at least 3 in their early 20s that had started transitioning as a teenager, maybe 12, 13, and maybe they end up in contact with another family member. One of the boys, it was his tutor that was encouraging him to go see this doctor at Children's Mott's Hospital. It was Mott's, right? And then it was U of M. I think it was Mott's.
Yeah, probably.
And immediately telling the mom, he's suicidal, he's going to kill himself. And the mom was like, well, wait a second. I mean, I knew he seemed a little feminine, but I haven't noticed anything about him going to kill himself. And within, 20 minutes of a counseling session, the counselor comes out and tells the mom, congratulations, you have a girl. And she goes, what are you talking about? And she said, well, you either have a girl or you have a dead son. Which do you want? And the mom probably wasn't, I wouldn't say, maybe she had some issues of her own that, if someone were to tell me that, I'd say, whoa. But she got sucked into I don't want my son to kill myself. I don't understand this. This is a doctor. They got to know what's going on. They explained it to her that during the inside the womb, that the brain hadn't developed to tell him that he was a girl, that he was born with biological boy parts, but his brain actually was a girl, or whatever, the opposite, whatever it is. And then proceeded to get this never really made the media, but send that child immediately that day after that session to a sex shop in Wyandotte. I think it's called Janet's Closet. And it's like an Adam and Eve place. It's all sex toys and whips and chains. Send the parents there, well, the mom and the son, to go get like the body enhancement, the boobs and the butt and all the fake stuff for the kid to start wearing. And even the kid said, Mom, I don't want to wear that. And she goes, well, that's what they said you should do. Let's just try it, Or maybe, why do we need him to do that? Maybe we just start out letting him dress like a girl. And this got pushed on them. So they walked in the store, threw all of the sex toys and all the whips and chains. And the girl that was walking them through, and this store is in Wyandotte. right? It's downriver. Walks him through and, oh, don't worry about that. Just we'll get you back to where the stuff is you need to go. So she bought it for him, I guess, and he never did wear it. And then he started taking the hormones and started transitioning into a female, and then really went through problem and after problem and issue after issue, and lots of urinary issues, urinary tract infections, and lots of medications and surgeries. And something came out. I can't remember if it was an article or some kind of report, but something came out and he read it and he said, that's enough. I never wanted to do that. Basically, he was gay. He was gay, and they tried telling him, well, you might think you're gay, but you'd be better off transitioning. And then another person in their early 20s, it was a girl, told almost the same story from Children's Mott's Hospital, that she was forced into the same situations to take hormones and transition into a boy, changed her mind, ended up trying to carry a child, got both her breasts removed, was able to carry a child, but wasn't able to birth a child. So had a cesarean, but couldn't breastfeed because she had no breasts because she had them removed, and are now telling their stories about all this stuff that was pushed on them from the counselors in the hospitals. And the number one thing was, do you want an alive boy or a dead girl, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why people get frustrated with the Republicans when they're in office is we want these people flayed, like not just de-licensed. Although that'd be a nice start too. And I know, and Patty brought this up. I was thinking the same thing actually. And the reason I bring this up only is because in your examples, it was where these so-called professionals were pushing parents into accepting this kind of stuff. Whereas this young woman we'd met was detransitioning. She said her parents were high-level employees at the University of Michigan, of course, and they had pushed her to transition. And then when she wanted to detransition, they were opposing it. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You shouldn't. The parents were actually in on this themselves, and that seems to be a whole other possibility where this could be.
I mean, one of the ways I judge through a little sanity check is when you have like the center left attacking something as idiotic, or even like the left of center left but not crazy attacking something. Bill Maher just was ripping these people to shreds, and he said, tell me if this is just something at birth, why these are clustered in California. And why there's a correlation between the type of TikToks you watch and this stuff. And it's not scientific. It's all.
Well, they would say because it's only in California where our doctors are detecting all of these gender dysphoria people. That was what they would say. Yeah.
And it's just not true. And it's just not true, and they all know it. And they and the Jamie, you know how it is. The people on the other side of the aisle from you, even if they're reasonable in every other sense, they have to whistle past the graveyard on this one. Blah blah blah, because they know that if they lose their left-hand side, they're subject to a primary, right?
They will leave. They will sneak out of session to not vote on this stuff.
Amazing, huh? Yeah.
Brave. I mean, I don't want to drop names, but I can think of 3 off the top of my head that are truly moderate Democrats that do not support this crap, and they will sneak out the back of session and not take the votes on these bills.
Right.
But they know what they're doing. And, at the end of the day, someday their career will be over, and they're going to look back and say, I was a radical Democrat because that's how I voted, because I ducked any opportunity I had to break from my party to do the right thing.
Yeah. Today I guess I assumed that they would all support implicit bias because we had a bill in the House today, and I had a really busy week, a really pretty busy month with Thanksgiving and everything. And I saw it on the agenda, and I'm like, I actually always wanted to initiate the legislation to remove implicit bias training as a requirement for renewing my nursing license, because you remember in 2020 during COVID, Whitmer did that as an executive order, and it was a huge slam in the face to all the nurses. 1 minute they're superheroes, the next minute they're all racist, and that's why people are dying. So it was a Maddox bill, and just didn't really put 2 and 2 together. Seen it on the agenda, I'm like, oh, that's great. And then we were voting on it today, and they let the two Dems speak opposing it, and then Maddock was going to speak in support, and I never asked to speak on it. And then as I'm sitting there listening to Rep. Rogers and Rep. Grant go on and on and on about how healthcare professionals are so racist, and I couldn't bite my tongue, right? So I went up to Garrett, the floor leader's staffer, and I said, I need to speak on this. He's like, okay, well, you want to? And I go, no, I don't have a speech prepared. I'm like, never mind, I'll just let Maddock do it. And then I'm listening and getting madder and madder and madder. And I'm like, okay, I'm speaking on it. I'm just going off rip.
Yeah.
And I felt so good because I actually got to say for the first time how angry and what a slap in the face it was to nurses that save people's lives and don't see color, don't see who your sexual partner is, don't see what your cultural background is. You're a human being that is sick, and you took an oath to do no harm and to care for that person. And for you to turn around and tell me that people are dying because I'm racist. So it was so funny because maybe I'll have to share the video and you guys will have to watch it. You know that when you speak and you give a speech in support of a legislation, you're supposed to address the chair. Well, a lot of times when I speak, I tend to look both ways. So then I'm always getting accused of looking at the Democrats, and I'm not allowed to do that. I have to address the chair. So I knew that they were going to get me so fired up because I was so ready to blast them on this issue that I turned the podium and I'm like, I'm just going to face my Republican colleagues so I don't get accused of speaking to the Democrats. Well, then I was so fired up in my conversation.
That's just one little example. The Democrats would never worry about that when they're in the majority of being accused of that. Republicans that worry about that. The Democrats would gavel down any criticism of any of their speakers for addressing the Republicans. That happens all the time in this.
I know. Well, I guess the clerk had said something to Speaker Pro Tem Rochelle, like, you got to have her face you got to have her face you, or something like that. But I was so caught up in my speech. I heard one of the Democrats say, well, that is racist.
You got there.
That is racist. You are racist. And then I heard Rochelle say something about address the speaker. And for some reason, I just thought she was talking to her. I don't know why. And I didn't turn. I just kept talking to the Republicans and wasn't looking at the Dems. But I guess she was talking to me. Like, Jamie, you have to, then I get these texts, Jamie, you have to address the chair. You have to address the chair. And I go, I know, but it's just out of a habit that when you speak, you tend to.
Yeah, it's unnatural. I'm not debating right? Chair, I'm debating my colleagues.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So when I do write speeches, I will kind of tend to remind myself, I'll put in there every other paragraph, maybe Madam Chair, to remind myself to address the chair.
The other thing to keep in mind is that if you ever get using a video clip of any of your speeches, the camera doesn't know which side is which. So as long as you're looking and leering and looking angry as you're saying, how dare these people, and you're pointing at your Republican colleagues, how dare these, but of course the people watching wouldn't know the difference. They'd assume you're pointing at the Democrats and yelling at them. So
C-SPAN killed that, Adam. I mean, I remember that it was a pretty big thing. That guy had railed on. He was a member of the U.S. House and railed on about such and such person, and basically intimating that he was right there. And then C-SPAN panned the camera out, and it was empty.
Yeah. In the U.S. House, every day they call them 1-minute speeches when members get up and they give a 1-minute speech. And what you never know is the room is completely empty. They're talking to nobody at all.
Right, exactly.
I have seen a few of those where I could tell the room was empty.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow.
Now that's what do they call it? A YouTube short?
Yeah.
That's YouTube short.
Well, what else, Representative, is different in Congress is committee meetings are not as you guys have it. Your hearings are rigidly timed. Everybody is there in the room at once. In Congress, they'll be very flexible with their time, and members come and go all the time. So I used to work for a guy that was on the oversight committee, and you'd see a member come, ask a stupid question, get up and leave. Different member would come in, ask the same stupid question because you never heard it being asked and answered before because they're all just coming and going.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I couldn't see. You're never even now in their committee hearings. They're hearing testimony too, but it's not as scheduled like our hearings where it's testimony, questions.
They can go on any number of hours depending because they have so many committees and so many members, so there's no way to schedule anything. Basically, the way it works. So anyway, we're off topic, but getting back to it, one other thing I want to bring up before we go, which is that for all the talk we've had about how hard it is for people to stand up and speak out about this stuff, one person who's been fearless about this was Laura Perry, who is running for state rep in that seat, which is a tough seat. It's a seat we're looking to flip. It's my district, in fact, and doing all I can to try to help her out. Maybe I should invite her on tonight, but I know she's really busy campaigning in her district. But she, and as she said in the clip we played at the beginning, you know, she is a mother of girls. She is an NCAA athlete herself, and she is not going to be silent and being bullied and browbeaten by these radical leftists.
And take it one step further, Adam.
Yeah.
So, first of all, Laura gets her own show.
Yeah.
Gets her own show. Second of all, Laura also led the charge to defeat not one, but two Monroe Community College millages. And one of the reasons she felt so strongly about that was not to punish the community college, but to point out to people that the community college was doing really, really bad things, like employing somebody who did some very dubious things with young kids who were not yet 18, but were at the community college, and gender neutral bathrooms and stuff like that.
Right.
And when Laura and the team, the Monroe County GOP, called them out on that, they proceeded to threaten her. I think I had gotten a call from somebody. They called it political extortion, and they were going to sue. And the letter was something like, hey, we think this policy is a bunch of garbage. We don't think it's supported by our local populace. And so long as you have that policy, we're not going to support your bond initiatives. The bond failed for the second time because twice, because they don't. It's not what their public believes. Their public does not believe in any of that garbage. So good on her. She's a great candidate. I hope she wins.
It really is.
And I can't wait. That would be great to get that seat. I know Dale Benicki, who also ran a good campaign, was very, very close. I'd love to see someone take it over the finish line.
Yeah, right around. It was Dale, the second run, only lost by what, 680
votes, something like that.
It was extremely close, and it was a race that millions of dollars were spent in.
Yeah, and I look at that like the first time I won in 22, I won by 660 votes, which was extremely close. But then by my second run, I won by 4,500 votes.
Right.
So that's why I know that Laura is somebody who will definitely be able to win that seat, I believe.
Yeah.
She's
By the way,
extremely hard.
Since I thought of it, and I don't want to forget it, it should be noted that the incumbent in that district, Regina Miller, co-sponsored a bill in the previous term to allow minors to run away from their parents and get medical care, i.e. permanent gender mutilation, sexual mutilation, from orphanages and other state-based institutions without their parents' knowledge or consent. So it's definitely an issue that there's a contrast on between these two candidates. All right. Before we go, do you guys have things you want to talk about, events to promote, bills, things you got going on? I know the Christmas is 2 weeks away.
I think the biggest thing that's given me a run for my money right now, and Matt, if I could get you, I think you're involved with them, but since we're on this together, Taylor School District is doing a lot of illegal things, and I need a good person to go in there and help those parents, because and Taylor is a very Democrat city. But the interesting thing, so me and Jim share Taylor, but we've never won Taylor because it's so Democrat.
Right.
But the things are changing, that, the dynamics of Downriver is turning more and more conservative, but even parents are seeing some craziness happen in Taylor that they're very opposed to. So the one was the Taylor Teen Health Center. And Matt, I know you know the story, but
I was just talking about the four. I have four of them. Go ahead.
So Taylor Teen Health Center ends up, they always did their program. And this is how I know I got their attention, because I had two lobbyists call me and try to talk me out of posting on social media, or at least say, can you at least call us and get information, and we'll get you all the answers you want before you post on social media. I'm like, that's never going to happen with me. Like, never going to happen, especially when it comes to this stuff. So Taylor schools have always had an anti-bullying program, with all schools do. And then they'll bring in counselors and let's talk to the kids about being bullying, make sure you're nice. Some are more about bullying. Some always go into more of the LGBTQ stuff. Well, Taylor Teen Health Center the superintendent unilaterally said, let's bring it into the elementary school. So it was always in middle, it was always in high school, but it was never in 4th and 5th grade. So they get these 2 people to go in from the Taylor Teen Health Center to do this in 4th and 5th grade. And the parents go home and tell the kids go home and tell them, sorry, I'm tired. The kids go home and tell the parents, there's this big guy that came in our classroom with a rainbow mustache and earrings and said that his office was over by Golden Corral. And if we ever needed to talk, we could go talk to him. They never got a parental consent for him to go talk to them.
And
So
say it again, a mustache, rainbow, earrings. Yes, I've seen the picture.
Good Lord.
Yeah, so all these parents sent me pictures of this guy from his social media. So he's got pictures saying all genders deserve abortion access. Let me say that again.
All right.
All genders deserve abortion access.
Yes.
And other clothing that was gender roles are toxic.
So
And
he believes that a man can compel his pregnant partner to murder her child.
no, I think
Okay.
when he says all genders
So
deserve access
a
to
man's
abortion,
gonna get an
he's saying a
abortion.
man can get an abortion.
Yeah, that too. Sure.
That's how I took
Probably
it.
both.
Well,
So basically Taylor Schools just told the parents, whoops, our bad. We're sorry. We didn't get permission slips. We won't let that happen again. So there's parents that are hounding it. And then this superintendent is running with this power that somehow 8 years ago, the board voted to give them some sort of power in decision making that we don't think is actually legal.
no, that was around the SEAB. So
Wow.
So districts are required to have how much time you want to spend on fun hours.
So this guy anyway, so then rumors go around Taylor that Mr. Counselor is going to sue me for defamation.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Because
Yeah.
I just put out, hey, check out your average counselor going into your kids' classrooms. Oh, by the way, without your consent or knowledge on what he's talking about. And then like all the rumor mill goes around, and they were all talking about it a couple weeks ago. And then it gets everybody all anxious and my staff all anxious. And I'm like, it's just rumors. Like, I didn't say anything defamatory. I just shared who he was. But
Yeah.
my point and what I'm trying to tackle too is this is a Corewell Health Taylor Teen Health Center that is not a school-based clinic, so they don't get the federal funding. So the school-based clinics get a hold of me and they're like, we want to make sure that we follow the federal law and we don't do anything with minors without parental consent. We don't give birth control, condoms, STD testing. We don't do any of that. Everything has to have parental consent because they seen that I was like really upset about this. Well, then Corewell calls and I'm trying to figure out, well, how does the Taylor Teen Health Center get to do this? How do they get to give children 12, 13, 14 birth control, condoms, test for STDs? How do they get to do all that without parental consent?
Amazing, huh? So Adam, this
Probably
starts
by ignoring the law altogether.
well. Let's talk about. You got to start from the beginning with Taylor. So Taylor, these people are amazing.
I don't know what that means, Patty, but I assume this is a last name.
No, Beaumont is the health.
The health system.
Yeah, Beaumont
Well,
Health.
Oh,
System.
Beaumont trying to get into
Beaumont.
Growth Point schools. Okay.
Correct.
Beaumont used to own them, but Beaumont, it was Oakwood, then Beaumont, now it's Corewell.
Well, yeah, it was a merger of another couple things. And in the past, it was a very contentious election where Beaumont was going to be the health clinic in Grosse Pointe over the objections of parents. There was a new board that was elected. The first thing the board did was come and throw the health clinic out. And that was after they had spent the liberals on the board had spent tens of thousands of dollars to get drawings done and everything. And then when the Republicans took over, they said, well, the issue's already resolved. And they said, no, it's not.
Yeah.
This starts from the basics. They had borrowed, Taylor put a bond on the ballot and asked their public to borrow $30 million. Taylor is not the wealthiest district in the area. Okay. These people work very, very hard for their money. And they put a $30 million bond out there to construct, I believe, a new middle school.
High school.
New high school. Only after passing the bond, issuing the bond, and receiving the dollars did this group of clowns realize the school was going to cost them $50 million, not $30 million. But because of the way the law is written, once you take the money, you can't just give it back. So they went around, to my understanding, and spent the money on a bunch of other things that were not a high school. That is one of 4 or 5 egregious things that this district has done. I hope there are parents who are listening who would want to run for public office. I would love to help you run for the Taylor School Board, because one of the things that drives school board elections, I run an organization called Get Kids Back to School. One of the things that we found is that local issues really drive school elections. Oxford, Rochester, local issues drive things. And this is a local issue that is an awful one. And it's one of very, very many, and they need new people in there. So yeah, I'd love to help out. I'd love to help anyone that wants to run for that office, because something has to change.
Yeah. They only have, to my knowledge, only one conservative board member on that entire board.
That's my understanding. But interestingly, apparently the entire, or the nature of the city council just flipped. So this is the thing, Adam, that I think people need to grasp. You always hear this terrible Virginia, New Jersey, this, that, special elections, blah, blah, blah. Dig a little deeper, okay? What happened in Troy with their $130 million bond? That is no longer a conservative area, Troy. It was when I grew up. It is not. What happened? It lost badly. What happened places like Taylor? What happened to some of these school bonds in some of these places? They lost because people are sick of it. And when you can focus on a specific issue and say, I am sick of this, and especially if that issue hits your pocketbook, you probably got a winning strategy in election.
That's what I told so many people about running for those school boards in Taylor. I'm like, you knock doors in Taylor, and how many people don't even have children in the school, and you explain to them what's going on. And hey, you don't even have to talk to them about all the wokeness. You just have to say, I'm running for school board in Taylor as a resident who is very unhappy about my property taxes going through the roof and not even having a high school.
That's a big, I mean, look, it's almost criminal negligence. It's so bad. And I sat on my school board for 8.5 years. I was treasurer for 6 of them. When we would do a bond, I mean, it was like a bloodletting. We were just going to dive into every detail, make sure every project was as close as you could to bid out before you ask the public for money to do them. So when you say you're going to do projects 1 through 10, you're going to get through 1 through 12 or 13 because you've been so tight with the money. And this was like, you couldn't get the first thing done. And they all looked at each other like, what do we do now? Well, the first thing you do is you fire the people that made that decision. That's the first thing the public should do.
Yeah,
I agree.
Question from Patty: is Regina Miller still on leave? The incumbent Democrat in the seat Laura Perry's running in, we were talking about earlier. She was in the House today, wasn't she? So
she's been back for a while.
Yeah.
She had back surgery, but she's been back for a while.
And I assume she's running for re-election, but even if not, the money for those races comes from leadership. It all goes through leadership, so there'll be money to run for that, so no matter who runs.
And I can't even confirm if she's running or not. I hope she.
Yeah, does. I don't think she's announced, but who knows? Democrats are playing that one close to the vest, I guess. Oh, I was going to ask Matt before we go. So obviously, the Trump administration has a huge backlog of these complaints. However, I assume they're probably pretty similar in many different states. So till things get spun up, I mean, at one point, do we start asking, hey, when are we going to get to this? When is this?
We're asking already. And I had conversations with 3 separate U.S. congressmen. I personally have filed 7 of them across the state, McLean, Molinar, and Barrett, and all when we were on Mackinac, and all of them told me the same thing. They took my name, they took the complaint number, and they said, government shutdown's going to kill you. And it hit, and it did. How more backlog they are after that I don't know.
A month and a half. Well,
so are they backlogged after that? How long does it take to bail yourself out of that? That I don't know. Bless you. But yeah, I would expect, I hope it gets some movement, because I think one of the things that's going to happen is it's going to disprove what they've run around the state saying. Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act means that you must allow a boy with gender dysphoria to play girls' sports. That's flies directly in the face of Title IX. It's complete garbage. It's never been, no court has ever said that. And when that is tested and the federal government comes in and says, we disagree, and what is the district going to do? Are they going to put their federal funding at risk to march to this tune? I don't know about that.
Well, isn't that what we've been saying all along, that the only way we're ever going to get that problem solved is there has to be a court precedent, a court hearing, like a precedent set that says no, it does not, because that's what the whole thing at Monroe Community College was, is that president kept saying, oh no, I do have to put signs on the bathrooms that say any gender can use this bathroom. That's what Elliot Larson says. It says I have to do that. And that's what MHSAA said is, well, we could follow, the statement they put out. Did you guys talk about that, where they said, well, their federal law conflicts state law. Like federal law says we can't, but state law says we have to follow Elliot Larson, so we have to.
Okay, so I asked this question of the people of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission. People know Michigan has a Civil Rights Commission. If you find a violation of your civil rights in the state of Michigan, Adam, you'll be pleased to know that probably doesn't apply to Michigan's version of the Second Amendment, among other things. You can, because that civil right doesn't count. That's not an important civil right. So you can file a complaint with them, and they would, if for the same standard, they'll take up your case. So how many times in the state of Michigan has the Michigan Civil Rights Commission successfully sued someone about the exclusion of a boy with gender dysphoria from a girl's bathroom? The answer is none.
Of course not.
None. It's never. How many active complaints do they have? I mean, this law is relatively new. Surely they are filing suit against restaurateurs, bless you, up in northern Michigan that don't want to comply. How many complaints have they filed? Answer,
that's an interesting question. None.
The answer is none. Even better, they held a hearing, and in the hearing, the committee asked general counsel for the committee to issue an opinion letter saying that was the case. The general counsel refused, and he came up with some excuse, and it was pretty clear the reason why he didn't. The excuse was his excuse, but part of it was because he can't give that opinion, because a first-year law student realizes that when state law and federal law conflict, federal law takes precedence. And oh, by the way, Civil Rights Commission, when was this first applied in mass? In the civil rights era, in the 1950s and 60s, where little black kids were excluded from going to white high schools. And state law at the time prohibited that. And the feds under Dwight David Eisenhower said, I guess we'll see about that, and sent in troops. So they should know better. They know that federal law overrides state law to the contrary. But they don't want to say it because, just like we talked about, they need to whistle past the graveyard so they don't tick off the far left fringe.
Exactly.
So we really have to wait until the Trump administration decides to do something about this before anything is going to ever get
probably correct. Results. Unless in 26, if we control all three houses, you could even do it in such a way that you clarify it, right? Where you say, we're not going to allow discrimination. I'm going to fire you based on gender identity, but that doesn't apply to bathrooms, locker rooms, sports, blah, blah, blah. But you could even do that. And that would eviscerate that too. But again, unless you control all three branches, the Democrats aren't going to do that. So
and you'll get the filibuster.
You'll get the filibuster in the federal government for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. I think that'll do it for us for tonight. Folks, if you're watching, if you have problems with your school, this guy's the one to talk to. Matt, where can people reach you?
They can reach me just go to my website. It's getkidsbacktoschool.org. You can go there. Adam, I wanted to plug, we had I'm also a member of the North Republicans Club. I'm its president.
I'm sorry I missed your Christmas party. It was very, very tough snow to get through.
Yeah, it was. It was tough. But notwithstanding that, we had almost 150 people. There was amazing food. George at Seneca, thank you very much, George. We love you. That was great. We had speakers, governor candidate, both AG, all three Secretary of State candidates were there. Two spoke. We had RNC committee man and woman. We had Lance Griffin at 10x votes. You know, and it was great. I spoke a little bit. That's all I needed to speak, but it was an amazing event. And Patty P did a great job. Couldn't do it without her because it was a joint effort between the Northville and Plymouth Canton Republicans clubs. So amazing event. And we don't know what's going to be next, but we're working on it.
Right on. Representative Thompson, thank you so much for joining us as well. The people in Brownstown, Downriver area are privileged to have you serving them. And thank you for coming on our program tonight.
Thank you for inviting me. Sorry, I had to end up heading home, so I took myself off video so I could drive.
You're fine. That's probably good, probably a good thing. All right, thank you guys so much. We'll have another regular show on this this coming Sunday. As always, folks, thanks again for all you guys do for liberty. And until next time, peace.